bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit.
All right, brother man. Well, you might be onto something, but I disagree with your premise. It's not Christians. It's more of religion, or maybe religious people. In the New Testament, we see that Jesus hates the religious spirit. He really does. He hates it with a passion. You have so much so, that they were accusing Jesus, right? Why are you hanging out with these sinners? Why are you friends of tax collectors? Why are you friends with drunkards? Why are you friends with glutton, right? This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, right? So Jesus was a friend of sinners and tax collectors. That's so the New Testament says. They bring him, friend, the Pharisees, right? The religious spirit. They bring him a prostitute caught in the act, and they tell Jesus, hey, we caught this woman in adultery, and the law of Moses says that we should stone such a woman. Jesus says, right, I'll give my first stone to whoever can tell me he has never sinned. All of them had fallen short of the glory of God, right? All of this is in the Bible, friend. Now, right here we see the religious spirit. So easy to go and judge people, right? There's verses in the New Testament. I don't want to get down to the specific chapters where, be careful how you measure, because in the same way you measure, you will be measured as well. Why are you so quick to cast the twig out of your brother's eye, but fail to see your own log in your own eye, right? Jesus says these things, right? So Jesus really hated the religious spirit, right? So it's the religious spirit for the most part that has to do with this bigotry and stuff, right? But a Christian, we don't want anything to do with it. We're just passing through, friend. We're just here for a while. We're gone the next, right? And looking at everything that's going on. There's two worlds for us. There's the secular world, and there is the Father's will, right? In the secular world, this is where they were not able to tell us, so they had lost their way. They didn't know what a woman was. This is the secular world. This is the same world where you had men competing in women's sport. This is the secular world. By all means, respect each other's bounds, Continue to do what you want to do. We won't say anything, right? The religious spirit, however, they'll have something to say about it. But we want nothing to do with it, right? We're just watching what's going on. So that's the secular world there. But in the Father's will, this is where the point of a father is to give advice. How to survive, how to be, when to be it, how to be it, right? We follow the Father's advice. This is the best advice of how to live your life, Jesus says in the book of Matthew, chapter 12, verses 46-50, there's something going on. Something about Jesus's mother and his brothers. They wanted to speak to him, and he tells the person and points at his disciples, and he says, who are my brothers and sisters? Or who are my mother and brothers? Or, who are my family members? He's like, anybody who does the will of my Father. And he points at his disciples. These are my brothers and sisters and mother. That's what Jesus says. So anybody who does the will of the Father, is Jesus's brother, mother, and sister, and all these things. But coming back to your original claim about the rainbow, as long as, there's respect and we respect each other's bounds, right? We have boundaries, right? I won't step into your world. You won't step into mine. But when the secular wants to grab a concept of the Bible and pervase it, well, now we have a problem, right? Because now you're stepping into our bounds. We don't like it. You don't like it when we do it to you. But when you do it to us, you want us to just not bat an eye and just pretend that there's nothing wrong here. But the truth is, friend, that the rainbow was a covenant that God formed with Noah. But I have to come before this, right? In the book of Genesis, chapter 6, 5, 7, this is where God starts seeing, the evil in men's hearts, and that their thoughts are constantly evil. Now pause and think for a second. What must that have been like, that God had to end the world then, and compare that to today? We weren't alive to see that then. Maybe it was bad, friend. Maybe it was the worst ever. Maybe in today's times, we're not even a fraction of what it was then. But maybe by some chance, and I suspect that we have surpassed what was then, right? In any case, God decides to destroy the world, right? So God destroys the world, floods it, and then he forms a covenant with Noah. This is in Genesis 9, 8, 11, I think. He forms a covenant with Noah, and he says, I'll never strike the world again. As long as I see my bow in the clouds, I'll remember my covenant with you, and every breath that has the breath of life will not perish, as long as he sees the bow in the clouds. Fast forward something like 2,000 years into the future from that time, and you have the Gospels, and you have maybe the disciple John, right? The author of the book of Revelation. Now, this is the part, friend, that is concerning. And again, I respect the secular world's bounds. I will not cross into them, right? But when you're crossing into mine, as I mentioned, or any Christian for that matter that would watch this, well, we have some concerns. In the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verses 3 to 6, we start hearing about two witnesses that would come. This is the apocalyptic book, if you will. Two witnesses that would come to the earth, and they're given power to strike the earth and all these things. But one that stands out to me is that they have power to stop the rain from pouring onto the earth. When God establishes his covenant with Noah, he tells him, I collect my clouds together and cause, the rain, and this is what forms the bow, right? When you have these witnesses then, friend, and they stop this, well, now the floodgates are open and anything goes. So I always appreciate, somebody trying to dissuade or try to hereticize, maybe become heretic into what this is. Again, you have your beliefs, friend. I have mine. And I won't step onto the secular world and tell people where they're wrong. If you ask me and you come to me, right, as a Christian for advice, I'll give you advice. And the advice I'll pull will be from the scriptures. But we're just watching, friend. And I'm not the only one. There are a few others like me out here, and we're watching everything. But we don't cross into the bounds and disrespect each other's boundaries, and we understand there are lines that we do not cross. But for some reason, as I mentioned, it's okay when you cross into ours and take marriage, for instance, which is a covenant of God, right, between man and woman, and you take a godly concept and pervase it. Well, now we have a problem. You see what I mean? So it's okay when you do it, but when we say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing that, you see, how do we win? At the end of the day, we're all just waiting, the ones that are here passing through. We're just waiting for those two witnesses and for the rain just to stop pouring on the earth. And who knows, man? Maybe it could happen tomorrow. Could happen this year, anytime, really. But as I say, in regards to worldly things, we want nothing to do with it. So take care, brother. Peace. And if you believe or you don't, God bless you, sir.